The day my mother died, I lost more than just a parent. I lost my entire world, my sense of security, and ultimately, my only remaining family. I just didn't know it yet. My name is Emma, and at 32, I found myself standing in the empty hallway of the home I'd grown up in, staring at the faded wallpaper my mother had chosen decades ago. The house still smelled like her, a mix of lavender and fresh laundry that made my chest ache with every breath. "You need to pack your things." Sarah's voice cut through my grief like a knife. My older sister stood at the end of the hallway, her arms crossed, looking more like a stranger than the person I'd shared a childhood with. "I'm selling the house, and you can't stay here anymore." I turned to face her, trying to process her words through the fog of mourning. "What are you talking about? This is my home too, Sarah. Mom left it to both of us." She laughed, a cold sound that echoed off the walls. "Actually, she didn't. I've been through the will with the lawyer. Everything goes to me. The house, the savings, all of it. You get nothing." The world tilted slightly. This couldn't be right. Mom would never do that. She'd always been fair, always made sure we were treated equally. Even when Sarah started her successful real estate business and I chose to stay home to care for Mom during her illness, our mother had never shown favoritism. "That's impossible," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Mom wouldn't." "Mom did." Sarah cut me off, pulling a folded document from her designer handbag. "Here's the proof. Everything is in my name now, including that trust fund you've been living off of." I felt the blood drain from my face. The trust fund, the money Mom had set aside for both of us years ago, was my only source of income. I put my career on hold to be Mom's caregiver, assuming I'd have that safety net to rebuild my life afterward. "You can't take that," I protested, my hands starting to shake. "That money was meant for both of us. Mom always said." "Mom's not here anymore," Sarah snapped, her perfectly made-up face twisting into something ugly. "And what she said doesn't matter. What matters is what's legal, and legally, it's all mine." I stood there frozen as Sarah continued. "You have 3 days to get out. Whatever you leave behind gets tossed." She turned on her heel, her expensive heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "Oh, and Emma, don't bother trying to fight this. I've already transferred all the money to my accounts. You can't afford a lawyer anyway." As she walked away, I caught a glimpse of her smirk in the hallway mirror. She'd been waiting for this moment, I realized. While I'd spent the last 2 years caring for our dying mother, Sarah had been plotting. But what she didn't know, what I hadn't told anyone, was that Mom had pulled me aside 3 weeks before she passed. She'd been having one of her clearer days, free from the fog of pain medication. "Emma," she'd said, her thin hand gripping mine with surprising strength. "There's something I need you to know, something about the will." I pushed the memory aside, forcing myself to focus on the present. Sarah might think she'd won, but Mom had been smarter than anyone gave her credit for. Even in her final days, she'd seen this coming. Walking up to my old bedroom, I started packing my belongings with steady hands. Let Sarah think she'd broken me. Let her believe she'd taken everything. I had something far more valuable than money or property. I had the truth, and in 3 months, when the real will was revealed, Sarah would learn exactly what Mom had planned. But for now, I had to play my part. I packed quickly, efficiently, taking only what I absolutely needed. Clothes, personal documents, and the small box of photos Mom had given me during our last conversation. Everything else could wait. As I carried my bags downstairs, Sarah was in the kitchen, already making calls about listing the house. Her voice drifted through the air, discussing property values and market trends like our childhood home was just another asset to flip. "Leaving so soon?" she called out, covering the phone with her hand. "I thought you put up more of a fight." I paused at the door, looking back at her. "What's there to fight about? You've made everything perfectly clear." Something flickered across her face. Disappointment maybe, or suspicion at my easy acceptance. But she quickly masked it with another smirk. "Well, good. At least you're being reasonable for once." I nodded, shouldering my bag. "Goodbye, Sarah. I hope you get everything you deserve." The double meaning was lost on her as she turned back to her phone call. Already dismissing my existence, I stepped out into the cool autumn air, letting the door close behind me with a quiet click. In my pocket, I felt the weight of Mom's last letter, the one she'd made me promise not to open until exactly 3 months after her death. The one that would change everything. Sarah thought she won. She thought she'd taken everything from me in one cruel swoop, but Mom had seen this coming long before any of us. She'd known her eldest daughter better than Sarah realized, and she prepared for exactly this scenario. I got into my car, starting the engine with steady hands. 3 months. I just had to wait 3 months, keeping quiet and letting Sarah believe she'd succeeded. Then the real truth would come out, and everything would change. As I drove away from my childhood home, I couldn't help but smile slightly. Mom had always said patience was a virtue. Now I understood exactly what she'd meant. The 3 months that followed were the longest of my life. I found a small studio apartment across town, using what little savings I had left from my personal account, the only money Sarah couldn't touch. The space was tiny, nothing like the sprawling family home I'd left behind, but it was mine. I got a job at a local bookstore, working long hours to keep my mind off the waiting. Every night, I'd come home and look at Mom's sealed letter, fighting the urge to open it early. 3 months exactly, she'd insisted. Promise me, Emma. Sarah, meanwhile, wasted no time making changes. Through mutual friends, I heard she'd already renovated the house, stripping away every trace of Mom's presence. She'd sold most of the furniture, including pieces that had been in our family for generations. The antique dining table where we'd shared Sunday dinners, the grandfather clock that had chimed through our childhood. All gone, replaced with modern pieces that matched her sleek aesthetic. She'd also been spreading stories about me, painting herself as the responsible sister who had to take charge after Mom's death. Poor Emma, she'd tell anyone who would listen. She just couldn't handle adult responsibilities. Someone had to step in. The irony wasn't lost on me. While she was busy crafting her narrative, I was the one working 60-hour weeks, learning to stand on my own feet without the trust fund I'd relied on for so long. Finally, exactly 3 months after Mom's death, I sat down at my small kitchen table and opened the letter with trembling hands. Inside was a single key and a handwritten note. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then everything has happened exactly as I feared it would. Sarah's greed has finally won out over her love for family. I'm sorry you had to experience that pain, but I knew you were strong enough to handle it. The key enclosed opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank, box number 2317. Inside, you'll find the real will, the one I made sure to have properly notarized and witnessed 2 months before I died. Sarah has been using a fake, one she likely crafted herself. I've watched her change over the years, becoming someone I barely recognized. The money, the status, it twisted her into someone who would betray her own sister without a second thought. I had to protect you from that. The real will splits everything equally between you both, as I always intended. But there's more. I've also included proof of Sarah's financial misconduct. Documents showing how she embezzled money from my accounts while I was sick, thinking I was too medicated to notice. Use this information wisely, my dear girl. Not for revenge, but for justice. All my love, Mom. I sat there for a long time, letting the weight of Mom's words sink in. She'd known. All along, she'd known exactly what Sarah would do, and she prepared for it. The next morning, I went to the bank as soon as it opened. The safety deposit box contained exactly what Mom had promised. The real will, notarized and ironclad, along with a thick folder of financial records. Sarah had been stealing from Mom for years, small amounts at first, then larger sums as Mom's illness progressed. I took everything straight to a lawyer, one recommended by the bank manager. As he reviewed the documents, his eyebrows rose higher and higher. He paused, looking up at me. This is quite something, Ms. Reynolds. Your sister could face serious legal consequences for this fraud. Not to mention the falsified will she's been using. I nodded, feeling strangely calm. How long will this take to sort out? Given the evidence, not long at all. We can file today if you'd like. And that's exactly what we did. Sarah received the legal notice while hosting a dinner party at our family home. Now stripped of its warmth and history, filled instead with her wealthy friends. I heard later that she'd gone pale as she read the documents, her perfectly manicured hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the papers. She tried to call me immediately, but I let it go to voicemail. Her messages grew increasingly desperate. Emma, we need to talk about this. Please, you don't understand. We can work something out. Don't do this to me. But it was too late. The truth was out, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The legal proceedings moved quickly. The real will was validated, Sarah's fraud was exposed, and suddenly, the tables had turned completely. Not only would everything be split equally as Mom had intended, but Sarah was facing potential criminal charges for her financial crimes. She showed up at my apartment one rainy evening, mascara running down her face. "How could you do this to me?" she demanded. "I'm your sister." I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but pity. "That's exactly what I wondered 3 months ago," I replied quietly, "when you threw me out of our home and took everything Mom left for both of us. I needed it more than you," she shouted, her composure cracking. "Look at my life, my status. I couldn't lose any of it." "And I couldn't lose my sister," I said simply. "But I did, long before Mom died. You chose money over family, Sarah. These are just the consequences." She left that night, broken and defeated, finally understanding what she'd lost, not just the money or the house, but something far more valuable. Trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. In the end, justice was served, but it brought me no joy. The house was sold, the proceeds split equally. The trust fund was restored, with Sarah required to repay everything she'd stolen. She avoided jail time but received probation and hefty fines. I bought a small house of my own, not far from where Mom's favorite park. It's nothing grand, but it's filled with the family furniture I managed to buy back from the people Sarah had sold it to. The antique dining table sits in my kitchen, and the grandfather clock chimes just like it used to. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I sit at that table and look at Mom's letter, marveling at her foresight and wisdom. She'd known that money could corrupt, that greed could destroy even the strongest family bonds. But she'd also known that truth, patience, and justice would prevail in the end. Sarah and I haven't spoken since that night at my apartment. Last I heard, she'd moved to another state, starting over where nobody knew her story. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks about what she lost, if she regrets choosing wealth over family. As for me, I found peace in my new life. The bookstore offered me a management position, and I'm slowly building a career I love. More importantly, I'm surrounded by the memories Mom left behind, not just in the furniture or the house, but in the lessons she taught me about patience, integrity, and the true meaning of family. Mom's final gift wasn't the money or the proof of Sarah's crimes. It was the understanding that some things, truth, justice, and self-respect, are worth waiting for. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply letting the truth come to light in its own time.